Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. A very warm welcome to yet another session of this Global Festival of Oneness 2021, celebrating Shankara, celebrating non-duality. Today we have a very special guest, Acharya Dr. K. Sadananda ji, who will be speaking about science and Vedanta. But let me first begin with a small prayer. ईश्वरो गुरुरात्मेति मूर्तिभेद विभागिने व्योमवद्व्याप्तदेहाय श्रीदक्षिणामूर्तये नमः। श्रुतिस्मृतिपुराणानाम् आलयं करुणालयं नमामि भगवत्पाद शङ्करं लोकशङ्करं सदाशिवसमारम्भां शङ्कराचार्यमध्यमाम् अस्मदाचार्यपर्यन्तां वन्दे गुरुपरम्पराम्. Let me give a very brief introduction to Dr. Sadaji. Acharya Sadaji is a material scientist by profession, and having worked at United States Naval Research Laboratory as the head of deformation and fracture, he published extensively in science and has received many awards. He was also visiting professor at Indian Institute of Technology, Madras, and he retired in 2005. And now he works as a private consultant in the United States for 6 months in a year. That was the professional part. Coming to Vedanta, Acharya Sadaji is a disciple of Swami Chinmayananda ji, and he was a founding trustee of Chinmaya Mission's Washington Regional Center, as well as Sri Shiva Vishnu Temple, Maryland, USA. He served as secretary and treasurer of Seva Inc., a philanthropic organization formed around 1980 by Chinmaya Mission to fund projects in India and elsewhere. Currently, he is an Acharya of Chinmaya Mission and splits his time between USA and India. Advaita Academy has been associated with him for a very long time. We have hosted his talks on Vedanta and on other issues and made it available on our website and our YouTube channel. And under the title Acharya Sadaji, you can all go and search. He is also author of many books, including Introduction to Vedanta, a 3-volume magnum opus, so to speak, called Journey Beyond a Non-Dual Approach, and a recent book, Transcending Science. And this was published by Indic Academy and is available on Amazon. He's married to Mrinalini Sadananda, who is a well-known Kuchipudi dancer and choreographer. A very warm welcome to you, Acharya Sadaji. We are all very much looking forward to today's session. Viewers, do follow us on Twitter, Facebook, and other social media handles for regular updates on the festival. With this brief opening remarks, Acharya Sadaji, I request you to start your talk for this session.
Let's start with the prayer. Om Samasta Jana Kalyani Niratam Karunamayam Namami Chinmayam Devam Sadgurum Brahma Vidvaram Vasudeva Sutam Devam Kamsa Chanura Mardanam Devaki Paramanandam Krishnam Vande Jagadgurum Tvameva Mata Cha Pita Tvameva Tvameva Bandhuscha Sakha Tvameva Tvameva Vidya Dravinam Tvameva Tvameva Sarvam Mama Deva Deva Tvameva Sarvam Gurudeva Deva. Hari Om. My topic is Science and Vedanta. Coming from a science background and channeled into Vedantic study, I have one leg in the so-called objective sciences and one leg in the Vedantic studies also. Fortunately, that's because of my Guru's grace. If you look what exactly is the science that we are familiar with, science, as I said, is derived from the root S-C-I-R-E. I put in my book S-C-I-E-R, but it should be S-C-I-R-E. It's a Latin root. It means to know. And science means actually knowledge. And in Sanskrit, Vid means to know. So Siya is Vid. And science is Veda. Veda means science. And Yayevam Veda. So you have to know this. That's what essentially is to be declared in the Vedanta also. So Veda means knowledge. And Vedanta is the end part of the Vedas, which are Upanishads. And also it implies that it is the end part of the knowledge itself, which means the ultimate knowledge. So it is the essence of knowledge itself is packed in the Vedanta. It's an implication statement by what is Vedanta. And Vedanta is absolute science, and it's not a statement of a fanatical statement, it is a statement of fact. We'll see why it is so, hopefully by the end of this talk. Interestingly, Veda means knowledge. Knowledge cannot be defined. If you go to Google or somewhere, what is knowledge? You will have all sorts of answers. But what is really knowledge cannot be defined. All they define or definable thing is knowledge of. Knowledge of X, knowledge of chemistry, knowledge of physics, knowledge of biology, knowledge of psychology, all knowledge of only, but not knowledge. What exactly is knowledge cannot be defined. And Vedanta defines that. Says Satyam, Jnanam, Anantam, Brahma. Says Jnanam is equated. Jnanam is a knowledge which is undefinable, is equated to the Brahman, Anantam, which is infinite, which is Brahman. And why do you say? Because of the Vedantic declaration, Prajnanam Brahma. The consciousness or the knowledge, which is consciousness, is defined as knowledge itself, because of which we are conscious of, because of which we have knowledge of. So knowledge itself is pure consciousness, and that is what is essentially defined as Brahman. That means it is infinite. Therefore, Satyam, Jnanam, Anantam, Brahma. So it is of the nature of infinite, therefore it cannot be defined. Infinite is not a definition. Infinite is not finite. It is undefinable. That's why. So knowledge cannot be defined, only knowledge of. And all knowledge of is science. And in the Vedanta, it's called Pramana Shastram. Pramana Shastram means where I will be able to know Pramana. Prama means knowledge, and Pramana means means of knowledge. So I have a knower, and this is to be known, and a means for knowing is called Pramanam. And the science of that is called Pramana Shastra. Now, how do I know things? I mean, these are simple things, but let's look at a little bit carefully. How do I know things? So there are three means of knowledge fundamentally. According to Advaita, there are 6 means, but let's look at 3 means. One is the Pratyaksha Pramana, that is direct perceptual knowledge. And another is the Anumana Pramana, where all the objective sciences are really based on, which is essentially logical deduction. It can be a direct deduction or indirect deductive research or inductive type of knowledge. And that comes under Anumana Pramana. And the third one is the Sabda Pramana. Sabda Pramana means where I can know through a reliable source of the Vakyam. And the Pratyaksha Pramana is direct perception is supposed to be the superior, because even Anumana Pramana has to rest on the Pratyaksha Pramana for validation. And in the, for example, all scientific analysis is based on what? Data. Data is nothing but Pratyaksha Pramana. Observations are there, and they make an interpretation on basis of logically deducing. That's what is Anumana. So this has been analyzed already in the Pramana Shastram according to the our Vedantic tradition or Vedic tradition. It's also in all the Navya, the Yoga, the Nyaya Vaiseshikas and all that, they are rely on this kind of logical deductions. Now, let's look at the simple facts. Pratyaksha Pramana means direct perceptual knowledge. And the Pramana is defined precisely, the means of knowledge is precisely defined in the Vedanta Paribhasha. It is Anadigata, Abadita, Artha Vishayaka, Jnanatvam Pramanam. So Prama means knowledge, and that can be known through Anadigata by no other means other than this. Abadita, that which cannot be negated, and that because of which I'll be able to know, by which I can gain the knowledge. That is what is called Pramana. Anadigata, Abadita. Abadita is very important. That means it cannot be negated. If I know something but it's negated later, it's not Prama, it becomes a Brahma. We'll give examples, simple examples. So what is a means of knowledge? The direct perception knowledge is the direct means I see, therefore it is there. So two facts here. One is I see it, therefore it is there. Another is, please carefully listen, therefore it is there, therefore I see it. This is what in Vedanta called Sushti Drishtivada and Drushti Srishtivada. Without going into complications, it says, but suppose I see, hey, I see a snake there, therefore there is a snake there. Because I see it. And because I say I'm afraid of the snake, I get all other reactions because it is a snake and I'm afraid of fear and all the blood pressure going up, all other, the reality, all things will happen because it's a snake there, because I see. So I see it, therefore it is there. But later when I found out that it is not really a snake, but is a rope, then that so-called Prama has become a Brahma because it is got negated. So anything that I see and I say it is there, it can be a Pramana, and the knowledge is called Prama, but it can be negated later by another higher means of knowledge or better means of knowledge. Then what I thought was a Prama becomes a Brahma. Because this is important. Even so-called Pramana all becomes a Brahma only when you know actual truth. So until then, it is a Pramana. Until I know that it is not a row, it is not a snake, it is a really snake. And I'll order everybody not to go there because there's a snake there. And I may die with that knowledge only because then it remains as a knowledge. Until that knowledge is negated, it was only Pramana only. Now, Anumana Pramana is two types. One is the Laukikam and Alaukikam. Laukikam is when I turn the TV on and a news reporter saying, hey, what's happening in Afghanistan? So I'm not in Afghanistan. I'm sitting here and watching TV, and the guy is telling me what's happening there in Afghanistan where I'm not there. And I had to have a faith in the fellow's reporting that he's telling me the truth. So any Sabda Pramana should rely on the validity of the fellow who's saying it. I should have faith in the statements. But in this case, I can go to Afghanistan and check whether this fellow is telling the truth or not. So by pratyaksha pramana, I can validate or invalidate what he is saying. But there are certain things which cannot be called alaukikam, not worldly things. A punyam and papam. For every action, there will be leftover impressions that will have a benefit, whether you will be responsible to account for that. Punyam and papam. And there's a heaven and hell. However, it's not a pratyaksha pramanam. It's only sabda pramanam, because I have to rely on the scriptural statement that it is. It's a working hypothesis for me to work on with that, because it may not be there, it may be there, but suppose it is there. So I don't want to be in the right side. So dharma and adharma, all these things become important as a working hypothesis to do certain things. So this alaukika pramana also helps something that I cannot know by direct means, but Vedanta will tell you this is how it is. Until I prove it. It's a hypothesis. And so they have pratyaksha pramana, anumana pramana, shabda pramana. Now let's look at the pratyaksha pramana, directly perception. Because this is important, you know, this, I'm talking about science, I'm coming from science background. We'll analyze this a little bit. Suppose I'm sitting in a pitch dark room, as an example I give. So in a pitch dark room, and someone outside says, Sadaji, is a chair there? Now what should I say? Because it's too dark for me to see anything. Remember, it's too dark, pitch dark. All I can say is, I don't know. Why? Because I cannot see. So I don't know whether chair is there or chair is not there. It may be there or it may not be there. I cannot tell. So it is indeterminate. It means it is anirvachaniyam. I cannot establish whether it is there or not. Why? Because I cannot see. So existence of the chair can only be established only when I can see. This is very important. If you extend this statement, existence of any object can only be established by the knowledge of its existence. I'll repeat that statement. Existence of any object in the world can only be established. It may be there, it may not be there, but it can be established only when there is a knowledge of existence, and knowledge takes place only when there is a knower. So for any knowledge, according to Vedanta or Pramana Shastra, there are three things required. One is a knower, important. Another is to be known, what is to be known, and the means connecting these two. So pramata is a knower. Prameyam is the object of knowledge. Pramana is the connect between the pramata and prameyam. These are simple things. Connection. So pratyaksha pramana is a direct perceptual knowledge connects the pramata, that I am a seer, and the chair that is to be seen. Right? Now let's ask one question, simple question. How do you know it's dark? Think about it. Oh, I can see. Sir, you just now told me that you cannot see anything. How do you see darkness? Interesting. I don't need a light to see the darkness. In fact, if you turn the light on, I cannot see the darkness. So I can see the darkness in what light? That is the light of consciousness that illumines even the darkness also. We'll come back to that. Let's remember this one. Now, somebody asks you, sir, are you there? So should I say, I don't know whether I am there or in there because I don't see anything here. Do I have to see myself to know that I am there? Think about it. I need light for me to see the chair, but I don't need a light, or I don't have to see anything. I don't have to hear me or soul to prove that I am there. I am self-existing. Number one. self-conscious. I'm a knower and also I'm an existent entity itself. So I don't need any pramana to know myself that I am there. Remember this. So I am self-existing, self-consciousness, whereas everything else depends upon my existence, because I have to exist as a conscious entity to establish the existence of any other object, because the knowledge of the existence has to take place. So existence of the object is established by the knowledge of existence. Suppose you are not desired, somebody else can establish. Is there a chair or there, somebody else can tell. Who is somebody? Oh, some uncle can come and tell. But how do I know? Oh, he will tell me. That means, uncle, somebody has to come and tell. See, for him it is a pratyaksha pramana, but for me it will be only shabda pramana, and I should have faith in the fellow's statement. And I should first faith that he is there. And also, because of if I hear him, then I know he is there. So I have to know. So without me, nothing can be established. Even existence of other people itself cannot be established. So I am the only guy who is the pramata, real pramata, from my point. From your point, you are the only pramata. Pramata means knower. And just now we said, because I am self-existing, I don't need any pramana to establish myself. Even Vedanta doesn't have to prove that I am there. Vedanta tells me because I am already there. So my existence and my consciousness, Vedanta is not going to tell. I am already Sat and Chit. I am not looking for Sat and Chit. I know I exist. I know I am conscious entity. Then what is that missing things? That Ananda part. We'll come back to that. So what exactly Vedanta tells me is not that I am there or I am conscious entity. I am a self-existing, self-conscious entity. And then what is Vedanta will tell me then? It's not going to tell me that I am Sat and I am Chit. What I'm going to tell me is I am Anantam. I am infinite. Aham Brahmasmi. Brahman means infinite. So it's going to tell me the third part of it, which is I am missing in the process. And that exactly is what exactly purpose of Vedanta becomes a pramana for that. Also, Vedanta becomes pramana in Sat and Chit also aspects to some extent we'll see. Now, there are two things, I am and this. And the pramana is connecting these two. Now let's look at the I am part. The I am part is self-existent, self-conscious, we say. So who is that I am then? How do I know I am? I am a subject. And how do I define I am? Only way subject cannot be defined is that which cannot be objectified. So anything that can be objectified becomes a prameyam, object. And I am not an object, I am a subject. So subject is not an object. Number one definition, and that's the only definition. Then how am I going to know myself? You don't need to know yourself. You are already aware of yourself. But what you need to know is what you really are rather than what you think you are. That's the problem. What do you mean? Well, I know what I am. Everybody gives a big biography. Just now he introduced me, Sadaji is this, Sadaji is that, which I didn't know so much of it. So is that what it is? Anything that objectifiable cannot be me. I am what? This is the essence of Vedanta tells you not only about the objective world, and this is what Vedanta, the essence of highest knowledge, is telling. The first, who is that Pramata? Knower himself. Without knowing who is the knower, we are trying to know everything else. And that's why Vedanta includes not only you and also the world and connection between the two. That's why it is called highest science. Whereas all objective sciences only rest on the objectifiable entities, and anything about subject, they call, oh, it's very subjective. Because they cannot analyze. They cannot quantify, qualify, and anything they cannot say. So they dismiss it because they cannot use objective tools to analyze the subject. And that's what I'm trying to do in the cognitive sciences. Those people who know about cognitive sciences will touch base a little bit if we can. But even the cognitive sciences, they're trying to analyze brain and the mind as though it is some object. Who is analyzing? The fellow who is a subject is analyzing that also. And a subject cannot be objectified, so there is no way you can analyze. So how does Vedanta deal then? That's exactly why analysis of Vedanta provides. It says, you experience 3 states of consciousness, that is a waking state and the dream state and the deep sleep state. That I am part is traveling all over this place, three regimes, waking world and the dream world and the deep sleep world. And therefore you analyze these 3 worlds and you are different from the world because you are moving in all the 3 states. So it is called Lakshyartha by using indicatory definitions because it cannot be defined. Indicatory definitions are used by Vedanta to point out that which cannot be pointed out, for me to contemplate on that which cannot be quantified or directed to. So what is that? So 3 states of consciousness is defined or analyzed in the Mandukya Upanishad, the waking world and the dream state, dream world and the deep sleep state. So I am in the waking state and the whole world of this whole objective world is there. Using the pramana, I am seeing all that. So all the pratyaksha pramana, all those things are seeing the world of plurality that we are in right now. And I am a subject, I am knowing all that through these pramanas. So everything becomes a prameyam, except myself. I cannot be prameyam. So apramanam, I call apramanam. I cannot be known, not as an object. Because it's a knowledge itself, you'll see that. But what it says is, in the waking world, I am a knower and everything to be known is defined. So everything that is known is not me. I can reject all that and go to dream state, where I am, which can be different from the waker, because I may be the waker may be sleeping in an air-conditioned room, but a dreamer may be in the forest, in somewhere in the hot sun, running around when a tiger is chasing him. And here he is in the waker, so it completely contrasts. The time different, space different, everything is constant, different. So the dream world, if I'm sick in the dream world, I have to go to a dream hospital to get a dream medicine only. There's no other way, which is different from a waking world. So I am a dreamer in the dream world. Dream world comes, waking world gone, dream world comes. And when I go to a deep sleep state, I have completely a different state where there is no objective world as though, but I am there. So when I get up in the morning, I slept very well, I say. And interesting thing is that experience is used by Vedanta to define you are beyond any world, beyond space and time too. So in the deep sleep state, we have no concept of time. We have no concept of space because there are no objects. So if you look at the science point, Einsteinian definition of a time is a gap between two sequential events. Event 1, event 2. The gap between the two is called a time. This is the Einsteinian definition. And for that events to observe, there has to be an observer, independent of the events. So I am an observer observing tuck, tuck. So two events happening, and the gap between the two, it defines a time. That is called the definition of an Einsteinian definition. But Vedanta provides a different way of defining. It says it's not two observations, it's a two experiences. It's an experience 1 and experience 2. The gap between the two is the time. So in the deep sleep state, everybody may have time, but for me, there's a constant experience of the absence of subject-object duality. I'm using every word as a scientist. So absence of subject-object duality in the deep sleep state. Not absence of myself. So that I am pure beyond subject-object duality. And therefore, for the subject-object duality, I need a mind. That's what the poem is. So I am there in the deep sleep state. No concept of time is there because there is no observations. There's only one observation, constant absence of subject-object duality. I need a second observation to know the time. So when I get up, oh my God, it's already so much. I have to go somewhere and then I run around. So second observation has to come in to define the time. That's a definition of time. So Vedantic definition is much better than even the Einsteinian definition, where observer has to be taken into consideration correctly. And observer has to be independent of space and time, not in Einsteinian definition. Now, space also we can define properly. Space is the distance or gap between two simultaneous observations. If you look at my two hands, you are simultaneously seeing both hands, and now you can define this space. So space is a gap between two simultaneous observations, and the time is space between two sequential observations. And I am beyond the space and time in the deep sleep state. So I am beyond all the objective world. I am the subject. I am there in the waking state when the objective world is there. I am there in the dream state when the objective world is there. I am there in the deep sleep state where there is no objective world. But yet, even in the deep sleep state, I am conscious of the absence of subject-object duality. Now, all these things, knowledge of we are talking about requires the mind. Without the mind, nothing can be known. So I, a conscious entity, using the mind, try to know all the other things. And what is mind? We have psychologists define in one way, the philosophers define in one way, but Vedanta also defines the mind. It is a subtle material. Just as the gross material matter, it is a subtle material. According to cognitive sciences, they still have a problem of defining mind. All they can talk about is the brain and the neurons. Now, simple facts. So when in the dark room example, I don't see anything, right? Why? Because there's no light. Suppose I turn the light on. What do I see? Oh, I see chair now. Really? Think about it. Do you really see chair? So what I'm seeing is light falling on the chair, getting reflected by the chair, coming to my eyes and forming an image in my retina, transmitted through the optical nervous system to the brain and forming a neurons input there. That's all the objective sciences can tell. And that's the end of objective sciences. Then how does I see? Oh, somehow you see. That means that somehow means they don't know. What man sees that is called the input, charge input, is converted into software. Now we know computers and all that. So computer language, you input in terms of plus minus signs, charges, but that will be converted into software by a program code. We are familiar. Now we know what is hardware and what is software. So brain is a hardware, even neurons are charges only, but it has to be converted into some language that I can use. That is done by some program code Lord has put into in everybody's brain. See, that's the beauty of understanding is you see, you become really devotee. That because of which I can see, I can hear, I can think, and that capacity to think is the given gift also by the Lord. So mind is a subtle material software that from which I can think and know things. That how exactly thought knowledge happens. So the neurons that when the chair thought, the neurons is converted into thought as a chair thought in my mind. And the light of consciousness has to beam that thought for me to see the thought. The light of just as the outside light has to beam and shine on the chair for me to see the chair. Same way, the light of consciousness has to beam my thought for me to be conscious of the thought. And just as any light is all, when the light is there, automatically I see. But I think I see objects, I think, but not really objects. I'm seeing only reflection of the light from the objects. This is where a little bit of the Vedanta Paribhasha and some of the Nyayas differ, where they think that the mind goes and forms, grasps the object. But there are some questions that can be raised also. And that's, recently there are discussions in Advaita list also, where suppose I have a lightning. I'm seeing but not hearing. I take some more time for hearing. So light is traveling, coming to me, information. Sound, it makes a longer time to come into information. So information is coming. In fact, now we know what is galaxies and light years and all that. So when I'm seeing some distant stars far away, I'm seeing some star which may not be there right now. The light that has traveled from there have come all the way back. The interesting thing, if you know, from the science point as well as the Vedanta point, is when people say Big Bang theory occurred, right? Big Bang theory occurred. Where did it occur? They can say, where is a space concept? Space itself came with the bang only. So they cannot answer the question where it occurred. And where was the material to occur? That also they cannot answer. They call it singularity. In the equations, they call it singularity means we don't know. Simple statement is it's a mathematical singularity. All it means is they are ignorant. Because they cannot define. Space and time starts with the Big Bang only. Big Bang occurred everywhere. Because there's no space itself. But how do you know Big Bang occurred? Because I am sitting here extrapolating because further galaxies are moving away and away. If you backward movement, it will meet at a point. Where do I point? Point where the fellow is interpolating. That means where I am sitting here, that's where exactly Big Bang occurred. It's interesting. Suppose I'm sitting there in billions of galaxies away there and sitting there, then it's exactly where that occurred. Where a conscious entity has to be there in order to extrapolate backwards. So where it occurred, wherever the conscious entity is doing the job. That means conscious entity has to be there before. So what it amounts to is essentially the consciousness has to be pre-existing and I cannot define it. And Vedanta provides the definition in the Mandukya Upanishad, that which cannot be defined. How does it define that? By Lakshyartha, the mantra 7, the famous mantra 7 of the Mandukya, it clearly defines in some way for me to contemplate on that, to know who I am. Oh, I already know who I am. Then who are you? I am. Then I put a big bio data. This, I am this. He said, Sadaji is this. I'm not, I cannot be this. I'm a subject and this is an object. I cannot be an object. That is a fundamental mistake. That's what Vedanta tells you. You are defining for convenience, for transactions. Yeah, for this talk, yes, he has to define something who is, otherwise people have to know who he is talking about. So for transactional purpose, we use this for the body. I am this body, I am this mind, I am this intellect, I'm sitting here and so on. So, but reality is I am cannot be defined. And Vedanta is absolute science. That's what we started talk about, is because it provides you an indicatory definition in the mantra 7 of the Mandukya Upanishad. Nanta pragyam, na bahi pragyam, no vayata pragyam, na pragyam, na pragyam, pragyanaganam. Says adrushtam, avyavaharyam, agrahyam, alakshanam, achintyam. It cannot be thought of. Avyapadesam ekatma pratyasaram says prapanchopashamam shantam shivam advaitam chaturtam manyante sa atma sa vigneyaha. That has to be known. Sa vigneya, that has to be known. How? Because you don't know who you are. So you have to know who you are. How? By negating what you are not. Neti 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 vakyani. By you are not this, you are not this, you are not this, you are not this. But what? By left of what? If you leave everything else, oh, I'm not a waker, I'm not a dreamer, I'm not a deep sleeper. I am, then what? Na anta pragyam, na vahi pragyam, no bhayata pragyam. You are not this, you are not that, you are not that. Na pragyam, you are not of any knowledge of you. Na pragyam, you are not ignorance also. That which is achintyam, that which cannot be thought of. So you cannot say, oh, then I am that. No. So you have to meditate on that. Meditate how? Where can I meditate? I don't know. There cannot be meditated on some object. So in the Advaita Gita, it says you are trying to meditate on something. Who is a meditator and who is a meditator? You are making some complex information. How can you meditate on anything? So meditation is different. What say? It says Srotavyaha, Mantavyaha, Nididhyasitavyaha, where you have to meditate on the knowledge that is gained to indicate a difference. Use that to jump to that which is beyond space and time. That's what the meditation is all about. So what I need to know is essentially that what Mandukya Upanishad mantra defines is, it is that which is Shantam, Shivam, Advaitam. It is non-duality. That which is, there cannot be any duality, subject-object duality cannot be there. And that which is, everything else is that. And that is essentially also talked about in the sloka, Purnamada, Purnamidam, Purnat, Purnamudachyate, Purnasya, Purnamadaya, Purnameva Vasishyate. That's essentially the whole Vedanta is packed in that also. So Purnam Adaha, that is infinite. What is that? So Purnama is that which cannot be pointed out. Purnam Idam, this. And this in the Vedanta stands for the whole universe. So this is infinite. And that is infinite. So this is infinite, that is infinite. There cannot be two infinities. Because then each limits the other. Both cannot be infinite. So therefore, what is this? Whole universe is infinite. Because all this that I can point out comes under this. And that which cannot be pointed out as this it comes under Adam. Adam is that. Then how would he say it's called Adam? That the subject I, which cannot be pointed out as this, then why is he calling Adam that? Because it's not remote from the it is remote from the space-wise, time-wise, it is remote from the understanding, because you don't know who you are. So it's saying Purnamadam, you are also infinite, that's also infinite. And there cannot be two infinities. Therefore, next line says, Purnat, Purnamudachyate, Purnat, from the first one, Purnamadha, that is, you are infinite. You are from I am, the whole universe came. Because when I am waking, I am projecting the waking world. When I am a dream, I am projecting the dream sleep state. And I am in deep in the dream or deep dream state, and the deep in the dream sleep state, I am whole deep world. I am neither a waker nor I am projecting three worlds, but I am beyond the three worlds. That is essentially prapancho upashamam. All the words go back into me, come back from me. That is essentially what mantra 7 of the Mandukya is pointing out. And that need to be contemplated on. It is need to be thought about what exactly is that. How? First find out what the truth about yourself, because going after things, first for that, mind has to be purified enough for me to contemplate in the direction, because otherwise mind will project something as I am this. And you will see a lot of things as I am this, I know this, all those things. But for that, I cannot tell I am this anymore. I have to keep quiet, because any quantification becomes objectification. But teacher has to do it in such a way that it is. So with that, we need to understand exactly what that is. Therefore, Srota Mantavyaha has to be contemplated and discover who is that. That is the real science. Thank you very much. Haribo.
Thank you very much, Acharya. The session was so fascinating, so wonderful that I personally could have sat here for another 1 or 2 hours listening to it. So it was wonderful, very interesting perspectives. I think we have a few questions. I will just read them out one by one so that you can answer them. One of the questions is it legit or correct for me to say that everything is just an extension of myself and it is there because I can see it, and when my body is gone, it will also be gone? Is this the state of mind correct approach to Advaita Vedanta?
There are first two things. Is it correct approach or is it an approach to Advaita Vedanta? There are two aspects involved. Is it correct? Ultimately, that is correct. Because I am, if I understood the Advaiting, I understood that I am not this local guy. I am pure consciousness, which is Brahman. So from me, the whole projection is, from that point, it is absolutely true. So when I am there, then everything becomes my vibhuti, my glory only. And therefore, from me it came and from me it dissolved. So I'm identifying not with the body, mind, intellect locally, because I understood now. So from the understanding point, I'm identifying from the Brahman. For Brahman reference, the first part is correct. So from the point of a seeker, he has to first start from the basic where he's still identifying with the BMI, where he has not switched to complete identification. Then he is playing with the roles anyway. Then he can say it is Ishvara Srushti. Therefore, I am seeing it at the same time until I recognize I am there is no difference between Ishvara and myself. So until that firm understanding comes, number one. But even after the understanding, for the Loka Kalyanam's sake, for the sake of benefit of others who are still traveling it, I don't say I am created the whole thing. So Lord created it, what's a give? So it is important for them to grow up and make a simple statement that it is creation by the Lord himself. Until then we have to. So even though a Jnani understood that I am the totality, but while teaching, it says it's a Ishvara Srushti. So it becomes a glorification, and therefore prayer becomes a means of knowledge until my mind gets purified, and therefore it's called Atma Rati and Atma Krida. It's called. So when I'm reveling in myself, then it is myself. When I'm playing myself, it says the Lord is playing and I'm playing. It has to be correctly, has to be communicated. Yes.
Thank you, Acharya.
I don't know if I answered that.
Another question we have is, if a tree falls in a forest and no one is around to hear it, does it make a sound? Can something exist without being perceived by consciousness? This is a trending question in philosophy and spirituality. Can you please shed light on this in terms of Advaita and science?
No, if suppose the people said there are a lot of galaxies around there. I can deduce mathematically there is a dark matter or something like that. All those things that I cannot see, but I can logically deduce from the logic basis. But logic is again based on pratyaksha pramana for validation. So based on the extension of that, I can project it something, but I should have some means of knowing, and without me knowledge, it cannot be established either way. So establishing the existence is only, until then it's a proposition. And other people, whether some conscious entity has to establish, and I am, for me, from my point, I'm the only conscious entity because I should know what they have established. So from my point, unless the knowledge of existence occurs, then it's indeterminate only. It may not. It's like people ask logically, if the tree falls in a distant forest, do you know? So the question itself is, how do you know the tree fell in the distant forest? So that question itself becomes a logical problems, and that is because of the nature of the question itself.
Another question is, what is the physics of appearance when in the ultimate analysis there is no duality? That is, how Brahman makes an appearance because of which duality arises?
This is always a fundamental question in terms of how creation occurs. So because of the ignorance, the Advaita says, because of the ignorance, which is essentially the Mula Vidya, I am projecting something I don't know. So when did it start? How am I projecting? On what basis? On the basis of previous samskara, I am doing it. That's called previous vasanas. So how did the previous come? Previous came because of previous to previous. Sir, when did the first thing started? First thing never, there's no first thing. It is a cyclic process. So there cannot be any beginning for ignorance. When did my ignorance of chemistry started? Oh, from the beginning, I don't know chemistry. But ignorance can end when I learn chemistry. So ignorance of anything can end by knowledge, but there is no beginning for ignorance. And ignorance is the root cause for the creation also. And that's what they call Maya Vada, and also that's basically in a sense.
Thank you, Acharya. I think we have one more question. There is a tendency among those who believe in the pramanatvam of Veda to validate the tradition through science. And there is equally another disposition among the educated people to posit Vedanta and material science as being in opposition to one another. So how do we reconcile this confusion?
No, there is a lot of cognitive sciences that are being developed particularly. But if you go to any of that, they become opinions there, because there is no way they can prove what is essentially consciousness. How does the consciousness arise? That question can never be addressed by any objective sciences. So that where the limits for objective sciences are, because it is it's only they say they are conscious of only, because they cannot define how consciousness arises. It somehow arises, accidentally arises, something happens. All those words means they don't know. And only Vedanta says it cannot arise because na udeti na astameti. It is a consciousness. Then who is conscious of the arise of the consciousness? So it's a beginningless, and that itself is infinite. Is only Vedantic pramana becomes important. So there's a limit for objective sciences. Yes.
Thank you, Acharya, for that clear-cut answers and very great clarity. Because today the scientific perspective, so to speak, has become so common, so mainstream, that we tend to forget that that is not the only way to approach knowledge. Yes, so there is a lot of confusion, and even in schools and colleges, we are taught to see that truth is only about science. If science, some laboratory mechanisms establishes something, that is true, and everything else is a kind of mithya or myth, they call it. So
but I also want to point out, that we cannot neglect science also. So does the mind travel somewhere and all that? We have to be analyzed properly also in the systems. And there we have to be careful also. So we have to make use of the science that is possible. Also see the limits of the science also. That is the correct approach for real Vedanta.
That is very succinctly put. we make use of it, but also understand the limitation of it. I think that is the takeaway message today. On the behalf
Nitin,
of
I just have
yes,
one publishing promotion. So just give me a minute. I want to show the two books that we have published.
yes, go ahead, Hariji.
Advaita Academy has published of Acharya Sadaji. This is a 3-volume book on a journey beyond a non-dual approach. He was a moderator of Advaitin group, and the discussions he has captured. And the other book is Transcending Science. So these are the two books of Acharya we have published. And so I would encourage all of you to buy these two sets of books, because the clarity that is brought forth from all the discussions in that group and by Acharya Ji is simply amazing. So I urge all of you to buy these two set of books. Thank you.
Thank you, Rajiv. Viewers, the books are available on Amazon. You can simply go to amazon.in and just purchase the books. So Acharya, on the behalf of entire Advaita Academy and all our audience, I sincerely thank you for agreeing to participate in the festival and share so many insights, fascinating insights about Vedanta, science and interconnections and limitations and such other things. We are very grateful for you. Yes, with this, we come to conclusion of today's session. Tomorrow morning, we bring another wonderful talk. Koti, you're not showing the flyer. We have a Hindi talk on Panchikaranam, an important prakriyam in Advaita Vedanta, which will be delivered by Swamini Suprabhanandaji tomorrow morning at 7 a.m. And the link, registration link, if you have not registered, are there in the chat box. Please check the chat box and register for tomorrow's session. And with this, we conclude this session. I hope to see you tomorrow morning. Shri Guru Pyo Namaha.